November 20th, 1943. The ocean around Betio Island looked calm from a distance, almost still, but as the first landing craft pushed forward, engines slowed, then stopped abruptly against the coral reef. Marines looked ahead and realized the shoreline was still far away. There was no cover, no protection, only open water, and then, without warning, the island erupted in gunfire. The target was Betio Island, in the Tarawa Atoll, a heavily fortified Japanese stronghold in the Central Pacific. U.S. Marines were ordered to seize it as part of the island-hopping campaign during World War II. Japanese forces under Keiji Shibasaki had spent months preparing defenses designed to stop any landing. The target was Betio Island, in the Tarawa Atoll, a heavily fortified Japanese stronghold in the Central Pacific. U.S. Marines were ordered to seize it as part of the island-hopping campaign during World War II. Japanese forces under Keiji Shibasaki had spent months preparing defenses designed to stop any landing. The moment they entered the water, the Japanese defenses opened fire in full. Machine guns swept across the reef, cutting through the first ranks before they could spread out. There was no cover, only shallow water and uneven coral beneath their boots. Some Marines tried to move faster, others hesitated, unsure of footing. Formation collapsed within minutes, under constant fire. The water was deeper than expected in many places, forcing men to struggle to stay upright. Equipment pulled them down, slowing every step. Wounded Marines fell into the surf, some unable to get back up. Others tried to drag them forward, knowing stopping meant being left behind. The distance to shore felt far longer now, each yard gained under steady gunfire. Specialized landing vehicles capable of crossing the reef managed to move ahead, but they became immediate targets. Japanese gunners focused fire on anything that moved faster or offered protection. Explosions tore through the vehicles, leaving survivors exposed again. Smoke drifted over the water, but it was thin and inconsistent, offering little concealment against prepared defenses. Communication began to fail as soon as the first wave broke apart. Officers shouted commands, but the sound of gunfire drowned them out. Units mixed together, losing structure and direction. What had been a carefully planned assault turned into scattered groups of Marines moving forward by instinct, each man focused on reaching the beach alive. The closer they came to Betio, the more organized the Japanese fire became. Bunkers, built from reinforced concrete and logs, were positioned to cover every approach. Many were nearly invisible until they fired. Each position supported the next, creating overlapping zones where movement became nearly impossible without drawing fire from multiple directions. Some Marines finally reached the narrow strip of beach, collapsing behind whatever cover they could find. A low seawall and scattered debris offered limited protection, but the beach itself was under constant fire, and there was no safe place to regroup. Men pressed into the sand, catching their breath while rounds struck around them. By mid-morning, the first wave had taken heavy losses, and the landing remained incomplete. Units were fragmented, equipment lost, and momentum slowed, yet more waves were already approaching, heading toward the same reef and the same exposed advance. The battle was still in its opening hours, and it was already far more difficult than expected. The second wave approached under the same conditions, fully aware of what waited ahead. From the landing craft, Marines could already see bodies in the water, equipment drifting, and smoke rising from damaged vehicles. There was no turning back. As the ramps dropped, they stepped into the same exposed reef, moving forward under fire that had not weakened since the first wave arrived. Naval bombardment had struck Betio before the landing, but many Japanese defenses remained intact. Deep bunkers and reinforced positions absorbed much of the shelling. As Marines advanced, it became clear that the defenders were still fully capable of coordinated fire. The bombardment had not broken the defensive network the way planners had expected. Along the reef, small groups of Marines began forming naturally, often without orders. Men from different units moved together, helping each other forward, sharing ammunition, and pulling wounded along when possible. Leadership became immediate and local, shaped by whoever could act in the moment rather than by rank or original assignment. On the beach, those who had arrived first tried to push inland, but progress was slow. Japanese positions were positioned just beyond the sand, protected and difficult to approach. Every attempt to move forward drew fire from multiple angles. Without coordinated support, advancing even a few yards required careful timing and constant risk. Amphibious tractors that reached the shore provided temporary cover, but many were disabled quickly. Some burned, others were abandoned after taking hits. Still, Marines used whatever remained, tracks, hulls, debris, as protection. The battlefield became cluttered with damaged equipment, each piece offering brief shelter in an environment where none had been planned. Communication between the beach and offshore commanders remained limited. Radios were lost in the water or damaged during the landing. Without clear updates, coordination of further waves and support became difficult. Decisions had to be made with incomplete information, adding uncertainty to an already unstable situation. Sniper fire began targeting movement along the beach, forcing Marines to stay low and limit exposure. Even simple actions, standing, moving, signaling, carried risk. The battlefield narrowed, with most men confined to small pockets of cover. The idea of a rapid advance inland had already faded, replaced by a slow and uncertain fight for position. As the day continued, heat and exhaustion added to the strain. Equipment soaked in seawater became heavier, uniforms stiff with salt. Wounded Marines required constant attention, but medical support was limited. Corpsmen worked under fire, moving between men, treating injuries as best they could with what they carried. Offshore, naval commanders recognized the severity of the situation. Additional fire support was directed toward visible strongpoints, but identifying targets from a distance proved difficult. Many Japanese positions remained concealed, continuing to fire despite bombardment. The defenders still held the advantage of preparation and terrain. By the afternoon of the first day, the landing force had established only a fragile hold on the beach. Progress inland remained minimal, and losses continued to rise. The original timetable for securing the island was already slipping. What had been planned as a quick operation was becoming a prolonged and costly battle. As daylight began to fade, the situation on Betio remained uncertain. Marines held scattered positions along the beach, but gaps between units left them vulnerable. There was no continuous line, no secure perimeter. Each group defended its own ground, aware that once darkness fell, the battle would change in ways they could not fully predict. The Japanese defenders had prepared for night fighting. Their positions were mapped, their routes known. As evening approached, Marines were ordered to dig in where they could, using bayonets, helmets, and bare hands to scrape shallow fighting positions in the sand. There was little time and less protection, but it was all they had. Supplies remained a critical problem. Ammunition was limited, water scarce, and much of the equipment meant to support the landing had been lost in the surf. Resupply efforts continued, but the same reef that blocked the first waves now slowed everything coming in. Every crate and every round mattered as the night approached. The wounded lay along the narrow beach, many still waiting to be evacuated. Corpsmen continued their work under fading light, moving from one man to another, often without enough supplies. Some Marines stayed beside injured comrades, refusing to leave them, even as the risk of night attacks increased. As darkness settled over Betio, visibility dropped, but the tension increased. Every sound carried across the beach, the movement of equipment, distant voices, the shifting of positions. Marines remained alert, knowing the Japanese often used night assaults to disrupt and overwhelm exposed forces. During the night, small-scale Japanese counterattacks began to probe the Marine positions. These were not large, coordinated charges, but deliberate attempts to test the line. Flares lit the darkness in brief flashes, revealing movement before fading again. Each contact forced immediate response, keeping men awake and under constant strain. Despite exhaustion, Marines held their ground. The disorganized landings of the morning had slowly turned into defensive positions that, while fragile, were holding. Every hour survived through the night, improved their chances of reinforcing the beachhead by morning. Holding was no longer just necessary, it was critical. Offshore, plans were already being adjusted. Commanders understood that the battle would not end quickly. Reinforcements, additional fire support, and new landing attempts would be needed at first light. The cost of the first day had made that clear. Tarawa would not be taken easily. For the men on the beach, time moved slowly. There was no clear sense of progress, only the immediate task of staying alive and holding position. The island ahead remained heavily defended, and the ground gained so far was minimal, but it was enough to continue, and that was all that mattered in that moment. The first day at Tarawa ended without victory, but not without consequence. What unfolded on those shores revealed the true cost of amphibious assault against prepared defenses. It forced changes in planning, coordination, and expectation for the battles that would follow. And for those who endured it, November 20th was not just the beginning of a battle. It was a lesson written in blood, one that would shape the rest of the war in the Pacific.